Most of the questions are in Thai, so I'll start with the ones in English. First one, how to overcome laziness. Well, I don't know whether I'm completely free of laziness myself, actually. But there's some basic features here. Changing behavior is dependent on really wanting to change behavior. Usually we procrastinate, we put it off, or we know we really should do this, but not today. It's usually because there's a conflict in our minds. One part of our mind wants to change and one part of our mind doesn't want to change. So unless you can, really make that firm decision to change, you won't change. And in many cases it's as simple as that, just in many different kinds of attachments or addictions even. Many people who give them up, so they just one day, they realize, it was just time to change. But it's as much, a maturing process where people are willing to weigh up the pros and cons and say, like, the cons outweigh the pros, it's not worth it, and that this particular kind of behavior prevents me from realizing the goals which are most important in my life. So, we reflect, well, what do we want to achieve in our life? What are our educational goals, career goals, goals in personal relationships, and how does this particular kind of behavior fit in with that? How does this laziness enhance our personal relationships? Does it make things better? Does it help in our studies? Does it help in our career? And if it doesn't, what are the detrimental effects that we've noticed? We get criticism from the people around us, the people whose opinions we respect. Also leads to a lot of self-aversion. You start to have negative feelings about yourself, and that spreads out into all other areas of life. So there is a role for what we call yoniso manasikara. It means really thinking this through and really seeing very clearly that there's so much suffering and so many problems arise from laziness, and there are so many things that we really want to achieve in our life which are going to be closed to us unless we deal with this, and not sometime in the near future, but today, right now. As far as setting goals is concerned, we have a goal of, say, to be free from laziness. But it's very important to have measurable outcomes, which means to say, you say within a certain measured period of time, a week or a month, I will make this change and this change and this change. So something that you can measure and say, have you lived up to this in this period of time, rather than just a vague kind of intention to change your behavior, which often just gets lost, and then we suddenly remember, like a month ago we were really determined to do something about this, and then we never really got round to it. So making your resolution, making a firm adhitthān or resolution, and then having measurable outcomes, giving yourself goals for a week and a month and 3 months. Writing something down has a very strong psychological effect. It makes it seem much more real if you write something down. Write it longhand. That doesn't just mean printing. Printing something in a computer screen and writing it longhand is a very different feeling psychologically. So writing it out longhand and then telling other people also, telling the people that you respect that you've made this decision and that you're going to do this and this and this within this time period. So using peer pressure and social pressure to help you. Now when you try to change your behavior, to give up laziness or whatever it might be, you're going to have some resistance. So that's when you needความอดทน, to be patient. Yeah, well, this is obviously going to happen. It's like if you haven't worked out or you haven't been exercising for a long time, you go to the gym for the first time, you're not expecting to have a good time. You know it's going to be tough until you get back into your rhythm again. And it's the same when you try to change your habits. Beginning there's a lot of resistance and stiffness and difficulty, but you know that's just part of the process. And so you just bear with it and be patient with it. And then as you find these small successes and small victories, really there's a sense of appreciation or anumodana. Just see how enjoyable, how much more enjoyable it is to be vigorous and energetic than it is to be lazy. Just notice, it really feels good. Feels better than being lazy. So those are a few tips. Next question. How do you deal with people who disrespect you and take advantage of you when all you've shown them is Dhamma, kindness and gentility? In brackets, perhaps they are jealous but do not want to show it. Well, that would be showing it already, wouldn't it? With a lot of these kinds of issues, then there's no sort of quick fix or like a sort of first aid response. It's a matter of this gradual training, as I've been outlining, of your conduct, of your emotions, of your thinking, of your attitudes, the way you look at life, the way you frame things. So remember, there's no such thing as raw experience. You're always framing things in terms of certain kinds of beliefs and expectations and aspirations. So you have to make that framework conscious. Now there's no reason at all to expect that everyone that you treat well is going to treat you well. I think generally speaking, it's the best thing to do for many reasons. But we can't expect that people are going to respond well to our kindness or goodness in every case. So if you do something good, you act well, or you treat somebody well, there are going to be very different responses. You have some people who generally appreciate and feel even inspired by what you've done. And then there are other people who are just going to pretend to be to appreciate and so on, and they express their anumodana, but really they want something from you, particularly if you're more successful, well known. Then you can have a lot of people who want to flatter you, put prajok prajang, and And someone who wants to Prajopadenga is going to say how much they appreciate what you do and how good you are and so on and so forth. So that's, there's one group of people that are like that in every society, isn't it? Then there are others who are just completely indifferent. They couldn't care less. What's the fuss? I don't see it's anything particularly special. Just not interested at all. And you have other people who are jealous and feel threatened, intimidated by your success or your goodness or your kindness. And then there are also those people who get angry and upset. You see, when just digress a little bit. There's a long debate about whether people are inherently honest or dishonest. Basically, underneath are we honest or dishonest? And so the various experiments have been devised to check this out. For instance, you give people a number of questions, and then you give them a reward for each one that they get right. So let's say you gave all of you these 10 questions, and then I give you the answers. And so you tick off the ones that you've got right, and then you go up and you receive your reward. Okay, I got 8 right here. You show you've got 8 right, or 7 right, whatever. And then you get your reward, say $10 for every right answer. And then they do a second case, for instance, where you have your 10 questions, but then you destroy, after you've heard the answers, you destroy your piece of paper. You don't have to show it, but you just tell the person who with all the money how many you got right. So it would be perfectly all right. Nobody would say anything. No one has any way of checking if you were to say you got 10 out of 10. So let's say on this test, on an average, with the verifiable answers, the average was, say, 6 out of 10. Now, if we were all inherently, just naturally dishonest, then why wouldn't we just say we got 10 out of 10 and pick up our $100? So we would expect in that view of human nature that everybody would do that. What actually happens is let's say the average for people who have the verifiable, checkable answers, it's 6 out of 10. And when the answers are not checked, they're about 7 or 8 out of 10. So the conclusion from this is that most people, or almost everybody, cheats, but just a little bit. But on a social level, on a national level, if everybody just cheats a little bit, we could be talking about billions of baht, billions of dollars. But why is it that people don't go all the way and cheat when they know they can't be found out? Well, because the material gain is only one thing that we want. The other thing that we want is a sense of self-respect. Now that's a real human need, if you like. We need to be able to respect ourselves. And if we were to go all the way and take every possible thing, we'd have to admit sooner or later that we were not a very good person, or not an honest person. But if we cheat just a little bit, everybody's just, so what, just a little bit, I'm not a real thief, just here and there, everybody does it, that kind of idea. So that's the way that human mind works. We don't just want gain, we need to maintain a sense of self-respect. So one of the ways that people who do bad things or things that they know they shouldn't really do, is to maintain self-respect. This is the way the world is. This is the way society is. It's not like the old days, or it's not like there. These days, this is just how it is. You don't have any choice. You have to do this. Otherwise you couldn't survive. That's the kind of rationale that people give for doing things they know are dishonest. So if you have someone who's honest, or someone who acts well in exactly the same environment, those people are going to be very upset, because that person has proved that no, it's not kind of a law of nature or a law of capitalist societies or a law of this people today or the world today. It's a personal choice. You've chosen to be dishonest, or you've chosen to take the wrong path. And so people who live good lives or really make the right choices and wise choices and difficult choices are always going to meet with a lot of anger and really sometimes even hatred. And this is why so many good people have been killed and assassinated over the years. It's really the most threatening thing to someone who is A, happy to behave in immoral ways, and B, determined to maintain their self-respect. So if we think about this, then I think it gives us a lot more, we're ready to take on whatever comes. We don't expect, well, because I've been so good and kind and gentle and thoughtful, therefore, I deserve some kind of reward. It's like my human right. You don't have any human rights in that way. But still, it's the best way to act. And if we feel that sense of disappointment and betrayal and so on, often it's a pointer to the fact that really, we're wanting something as a reward for our goodness. And our upset is that we're not getting what we want from our goodness. So there's already like a stain on our goodness through that desire. So the Buddha said that wen make a rangap doi wen, like anger, hatred, ill will is never removed, never disappears through more ill will. And ill will is gradually worn away through love and kindness and metta, but it's not something that happens straight away. I think another thing to appreciate in Thai culture that maybe you don't think about very much is that Thailand is not a revenge culture. Revenge is not a big theme in Thailand, is it? You see a lot of it in even in China. So there is a Chinese influence, Chinese, Kanni Dong Cham Ra, like in Gamlang Pai Nai movies, this kind of thing. But in Thai society, it's not really a part. And then, of course, in the West, you have this, like Old Testament, an eye for an eye. So it's the reason one of the big failures of Western society, and it includes Thailand, is what you do with people who behave badly. And so you've got this farcical situation in America where you've got like 2 million people in prison any one time. And because there's not some clear idea, what happens when somebody does something wrong? Is it something bad inside them? Is it Satan? Is it evil? Is there some kind of evilness inside them? Or is it due to their environment? Or is it a mixture of the two? And when someone goes to prison, do you just want to punish them and make their life hell so that they won't do that again? Or do you try to rehabilitate them? And then the whole penal system and the whole way of dealing with people who don't follow social conventions is such a mess, generally in the world. And so many things that are supposed to be deterrents actually are not. I don't know if you've heard about this 3 strikes and you're out I don't know how many states in America still have this on the statutes, but the idea was that if you commit 3 felonies, then you automatically go to prison for the rest of your life, irrespective of what the 3rd crime or the 3rd felony is. So you've got cases of people like stealing some CDs from a shop and going to prison for the rest of their life because it's their 3rd offense and like no parole. So the mindset, the understanding behind this is, if you know you committed 2 crimes, and if you commit 1 more crime, you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life without parole. You'd be so scared of going to prison, there's no way that you would commit that 3rd crime. There's this idea that fear of punishment is a deterrent, stops people from doing bad things. But the results are not very convincing at all. And I once read an account written by a sociologist who went into some of the slums and the gangland areas in LA and in Chicago and Detroit and interviewed all these people who'd committed 2 crimes, and if they were to commit 1 more crime, they were going to go to prison for the rest of their life. And they hadn't changed their ideas at all. They thought they were too smart to get caught. They didn't think it was going to happen. So there are various kind of rationalizations and justifications, which mean that fear of punishment is not a very good, very wise kind of deterrent. It doesn't work very well. Or if you have societies which their whole morality and their whole is based on fear of punishment, like Sharia law, if you commit theft and you get your hand cut off and these kinds of things, or even in most societies in the world, what you notice is, what happens when there's a war. Okay, suddenly all those things that you told were bad and evil in peacetime, now you can do them, get away with them, even get given medals for it. So the external pressure to be moral is often taken away in wartime, particularly in occupation of countries, or where you have, say, an occupying force has complete power over the occupied country, say like America in Iraq, or even Israel in Palestine, and so on and so forth. And then often the things that people would be willing to do when they're sanctioned by the state or the authorities suddenly, expand. And if people don't have any true morality inside them, an inner compass, an inner conscience, an inner morality, then you find people doing terrible things in wartime, which they would never have done in their ordinary life. So it's not that these people are moral in the Buddhist sense. It's just that it's easier to be moral than not to be moral. There's a situation that's not there which would encourage immorality. I've wandered off from the question, haven't I? Yes, it's a matter of seeing that the people who have no mental, spiritual training are unreliable, basically. I mean, it's very hard to trust someone who has no inner knowledge and awareness, because we naturally take our own side, khao khang du eng. We use logic and argument and things to lie to ourselves. Our minds are full of contradictions and inner conflicts, most of which we are unconscious of. And so, I found the more that I've trained my mind and understood the way the human mind works, the less I'm willing to trust people who've never done this kind of training, because the mind is it's a minefield. It's full of as I say, defilements. inner defilements. So there is this idea, if you're a good person or you meditate and so on, then you sort of see all the world in a rosy kind of everything's wonderful. But it's quite the opposite, because the practice training of the mind, you're looking again and again at all the defilements and the things that impede the inner peace of the mind or the smooth functioning of the mind. And so you become aware more and more of how those things function in yourself, and from then you know how those same things work in other people's minds. Okay. Every night before bed, I would chant the Pali prayers, Namo Tassa Arahang Sama. However, these are not the Buddha's teaching, and I can't understand because it's in Pali. It is better to abandon praying in Pali the prayers, good worshipping the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, instead chant translated prayers, which are the Buddha's teachings. It's up to you really. Those chants of Namo Tassa and Arahang and so on, although they're in Pali, it's very easy to find the translations, what they mean. I have this argument sometimes with people who complain about funeral chanting. Fang suat apitam, fang mai ru reung, fang tamai. Well, in any other area of life, you read a book or you hear something and you don't know what it means, you Google it or you try and find out what it means. So why don't you do that with Abhidhamma chanting on funeral? Why don't you just look it up? There's many books that'll tell you what these chants mean. The chanting, there are two kinds of chanting, or two things, or more than two things really, that you want from chanting. And one is that chanting creates a particular kind of emotion. It can bring up faith, bring up piti, can calm the mind. And so if you've really studied the Buddha's teachings, and you studied, who was the Buddha, what does Buddha mean, and what does it mean when we bow to the Buddha, what is the Dhamma, why do we bow to the Dhamma, what is the Sangha, why do we bow to the Sangha? So you study these things, and then after a while, I believe, then you find those ideas of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha very inspiring. And so it's an act of devotion, and it's something which is expressing something in your heart. But if you don't do the study and the practice and really reflect on the meaning of these things, they become empty rituals. So, so many of these ceremonies and rituals, they're like vessels. They're like a cup or an empty vessel. It's what you put in them that really matters. So, Namo Tassa and Arahang Sama, that only takes about 30 seconds or maybe 1 minute, so it's not a big lump of your life being wasted here. But I would say, rather than replacing them with these translated chants, then choose one or two translated chants that you really enjoy and really have meaning for you, and chant them, or maybe do a selection, maybe Monday do one chant, Tuesday another chant, or something like this. And so chant, so they have some variation, so it doesn't just become a ritual. The sharing of merit and the metta chants are very good for that. Are you skeptical of supernatural phenomena? Have you ever experienced any yourself? Well, I'm not at all skeptical. I'm 100% convinced. But I'm not convinced of every report of supernormal phenomena. Sometimes some of the reports and some of the things you hear I take with a pinch of salt. Yes, maybe not. But as regards the actual existence of these phenomena, if you're like live the life as I have, and we're living with people who meditate a lot and who are spiritually very gifted or advanced even, then these things are kind of not very unusual or amazing. But when I was writing the biography of Ajahn Chah 20 years ago, for leading up to his funeral, I really had to make a decision about how to present these kinds of phenomena in the book. Because in books about great monks, you've probably read or maybe have read books that tell you all about these magic power, or not magic powers, but psychic powers, and these, for me, these books tend to be very divisive. What happens is some people read them and they get really, really inspired, and other people say, "Oh, it was so good up to this point, I really like," and then all this stuff, I can't handle this, and they just put the book away. So I didn't want to write a book that would alienate people, but at the same time, it's not possible to completely ignore these phenomena, particularly in a monk like Ajahn Chah. There are many cases over the years, although for me the important thing was that Ajahn Chah wouldn't emphasize these things, or would tell people not to be interested in them at all. Also, there's a lot of like upatan, like people have a lot of faith. You're just sitting there and you're feeling really miserable, and then the Ajahn comes along and says, "Oh, you don't look so happy today." He read my mind, something like that. Sometimes it's on that kind of really ridiculous level. Then most monks get reputations for being able to forecast lottery numbers, and I had that reputation one time, but it's very easily explainable. If you have 200 people. Okay, if you're playing the underground lottery, which everyone in northeast Thailand plays, it's like the last three numbers. Okay, so you want three numbers or two numbers. And as a monk, it's almost impossible to give a talk about Buddhists without referring to some numbers. 4 noble truths, 8-fold paths, 6 or 7. So, and there are people, the day or two before the lottery, on the one prat or whenever they come, and they're just listening like this for these numbers. And then, so if you have enough people, you have a big enough spread of numbers. If you have let's say 100 people, get a number from your talk, I know you only need one of them to be successful. And Ajahn Chah, he won thousands of baht after listening to a Dhamma talk from Ajahn Jayasaro, you see. So that's how monks' reputations develop. But then on Ajahn Chah's cremation day, which was also the day the lottery came out, it was the 16th of January. And everybody in Ubon knew that with Ajahn Chah's great compassion, the lottery number, the last three numbers would be 161 from 16th of January. And sure enough, it was 161. So the lottery sellers went bust or ran away to Bangkok, and they didn't pay out. But so these kind of things happen. So I was writing about Ajahn Chah. So I wanted a cast iron case, just one, to say I'm not going to give you all these possible kind of things that you could interpret, and you say, that's not, that could be this or that could be that, because in so many of these stories you can be very skeptical. So I chose just one. And this monk, a friend of mine, he was on alms round. And you see, in those days, or even today, when we go on, we used to have very big bowls in those days, big iron bowls. It's very difficult to look after because they tend to get rusty and they get holes in them, and it's a big job. But they're also, if you've got a bowl like that, you can take a few kilos of sticky rice, because in villages in those days, very little gup cow, very little curry. Mostly it was sticky rice. So you get this big, heavy bowl of sticky rice. And then you get back to the monastery and you tip it all out and it goes off to the kitchen. But then you keep however much rice that you're going to eat. So you make a ball and you put the ball in your... And so this is a big thing, how big a ball of rice do you make, because you don't want to have too little. So it takes some time just to get that right amount. I mean, some monks, they like stick like that, stick your rice. And anyway, this particular monk, was doing a lot of work, we do a lot of really hard physical labor, like building work and construction work and something. And so you can be working from, say you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning or before 3 o'clock, and it's morning chanting and meditation, and then you go on alms round, which can be 5-6 kilometers walk on a completely empty stomach, and then you come back, you've got another hour's wait, and then you have one meal a day, okay, so, and then you can be working, like construction work, like climbing up and down and mixing cement from, say, 10 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. So, pretty tough. So this monk was telling me, he was walking back from alms round, and he thought, I'm really going to have to make a bigger ball of rice today. That my present size of ball of rice, it's just not going to sustain me through all this hard work we're doing. So he was walking back through the gate of the monastery, and Ajahn Chah was coming out. In those days, Ajahn Chah wasn't strong enough to go into the village on Bindabat, so he would just go to the front of the monastery, I think. And Ajahn Chah looked him in the eye and said, so you're going to eat more rice today, are you? So you're going to make a bigger ball of rice today, are you? So that was the, there's so many stories about monks being able to read people's minds. And some monks can read people's minds. It's true. But, in so many cases, if I was to tell you stories, you could say, well, that's not really conclusive. It could be this and it could be that. But I think this is a really good case because, it's not a matter of that monk had said something in public to someone before, or he said it to something to Ajahn Chah. It's just something that came up on alms round. He's saying, a lot of work today, and I'm just not eating enough rice. I need to make a bigger ball of sticky rice. And then Ajahn Chah was to see him just then and say exactly those words. So I think that's a pretty conclusive case. And there are sort of more Sanuk stories like this, but they're open to skeptical. Also, Ajahn Chah used to say, actually, you don't, often you don't even need to read people's minds. He said, I look at the monks, and just tell you about how, I don't know if anybody's been to Wat Bapong in Ubon, but it's not the same now as it used to be. You can see pictures in books. The dining hall was very long, narrow building, with benches all the way along. So the monks would be sitting one long row this side and one long row that side. And then Ajahn Chah sitting here. So you're sitting here and you're aware that Ajahn Chah can see everybody all the time, so you're always under his eye. And so he said, I don't need to read people's minds to know, where they are. All I have to see is how they sit down, how they get up, how they carry a spittoon, how they carry their bowl, your whole manner, the way you move, the way you pick things up, you put things down. Everything is giving messages and giving information to monks with this level of awareness and sharpness and clarity of mind. So it's not necessarily a case of reading minds, but it can be. So there. Yeah, I could probably go on about that kind of thing for a long time, maybe. There's another English one. Okay. Okay, what's sutta? If you have very ambitious career goals, how do you, 1, not become overly ambitious that you lose sight of family and physical and mental well-being? Well, I mean, the very question itself shows that the person asking the question is aware of the need for that kind of balance. So the answer is in the question to a certain extent. But what I would like to say something about a daily meditation practice, because there is a temptation to think this is just one more activity to add on to all these other activities. Okay, I study and I go to the gym and I do this and I do that and I'm trying to fit in a bit of meditation here and there. It's like one more thing. But what I would suggest is you see that meditation is just not one more thing, but meditation is when you just step back from all the things that you do and all the people that you have to be and all the expectations that you have to fulfill. And you're able just to step back from that and through the mindfulness and awareness, you become sensitive to your work, rest, family, balance. It's a way of taking stock of where you are and what you're doing and whether it's too much or too little, because often we're just too busy to really be aware of what's sometimes your body's telling you, or your mind's telling you, but it's as if the signals that your body and mind are giving you, unless you get really ill, are just too faint. There's so many other things going on that drown them out. So you, through putting aside some time for meditation, is getting in touch with really what's going on in your life. And often you'll be sitting there and you don't have to be particularly peaceful or samadhi or anything, but suddenly there's just something comes up in your mind. Yeah, that's really too much. I've really made a wrong decision there, or that's really something I need to deal with. Or maybe another time you're sitting there and just sort of pops up in your mind, that, well, this is not really such a big deal. Why am I worrying about this so much? Why am I so upset? It's really nothing. Or something else which you hadn't really thought about. You think, oh no, this is really serious. I can't let this go on anymore. Because in a daily life, what tends to happen is that, we obsess and make huge issues out of very small things very easily, and very important things that might have major consequences and affect our long-term prospects in our life and our relationships and our career, we just overlook, maybe just don't really see it's particularly important right now. And then sometimes if it's a negative kind of thing, we suddenly wake up and it's too late to do anything about it. So that tuning in to the inner wisdom that you have. Often when you're on the wrong track, there is a sense inside, you feel off balance, but we're alienated from our hearts because we lost that balance, we're overly concerned with things outside ourselves. So I would say to find that kind of balance between physical, family, spiritual, career goals, then giving yourself time just to retreat from the world, just to be quiet and be with yourself. Meditate, meaning just developing that inner awareness and calm, to be able to orient yourself wisely in the world you live in. How do you not become lost in money and fame that may come with career? Well, again, it's just being observant and being smart and just looking. What's so great about being famous? There's so many. There's one of the most famous sayings. Andy Warhol, we're living in a world where everyone's famous for 5 minutes. So many people who were so famous just a few years ago, now nobody's ever heard of them. Or, say in the political world, big thing to become a government minister. Now how many, say 10 years ago today, who were the government ministers? 5, or even today. I don't even know who's in government minister today, but, things that people make such a big issue of in the end. Yeah, so what? Fame, so what? Yeah. And it's, it's, I think, a bit pathetic when people are willing to miss out on so many important and beautiful things in life just for this ephemeral kind of dream of fame. So the more you're at peace with yourself and content with yourself, and that comes through meditation, then less important it is to be known by other people. Your self-worth is surely not dependent on how many people have heard of you or how many people know who you are. Why would that affect anything meaningful in your life? So, really looking at people who really want to be famous. Now this is one of the chilling things in England a few years ago. They interviewed all these huge number of primary school children. So, what do you want to be when you grew up? When I was a boy, it's things like, I want to be a train driver, or I want to be a footballer, or I want to be this, or I want to be a lawyer or a doctor, and now the number one desire of children in English is, I want to be famous, I want to be a celebrity, So, and the classic definition of a celebrity is someone who's famous for being famous. You don't have to be famous for being gang, or you're just famous for being famous. So it's a very hollow and, I think, unfulfilling kind of goal in life. There's a lot to be said for having money, isn't there? But I don't want to be too romantic about it. In most cases, having money is better than not having any money, unless you're a monk. But the important reflection, I think, is that in the language, sort of special language that the monks use, we refer to money as pacchai. And I think that's a really important reflection. Like, pacchai means it's a support. And the problem about money is not sort of, accumulation of money per se, but it's when money becomes a goal or a measure of who you are, rather than as a means towards an end. If you have some noble or worthwhile goals in your life. Often having money is better than not having it, for sure. You can do a lot more with money than you can without it. But if money becomes your goal, I want to have a lot of money, I want to be rich, I want to have more than anybody else, then that's a very unhealthy attitude towards money. So we're educating our relationship to money. What is the wisest, healthiest attitude to money? If we see like flaunting wealth is cool, then I think that's pretty sad. And so with moral, emotional, spiritual maturity, then we're looking less and less to external responses. To I must be somebody special because everybody knows my name, or because I'm, I have this and I have that which nobody else has. It's a matter of looking into the fallacy in these kinds of ideas, and all the studies that I've seen of looking at the correlation between mental illnesses and materialism, material narcissistic attitudes. The more materialistic people are, the more they're subject to clinical depression, for instance. The more narcissistic they are, the more domineering and cruel they can be, so on and so forth. So I don't think we have to say money is bad, fame is bad, but constantly looking at what is our relationship to the whole idea of fame, what is our relationship to money, and what is the wisest and the most constructive attitude to these things that we can have. I think this is the best way to look at it. Okay, I've shot over the allotted time, so I'm going to have a short meditation to end the morning session. So I'm not going to give any instruction now for the next 20 minutes. Just sit silently and practice in the way that I've been teaching you.